Ready to begin when you are.
Okay, let's start. Ms. Campbell. Call the meeting to order. So the annual meeting of the Ethics Committee, and we'll determine the quorum, please.
Happy to do so. Director Scott Houston.
Here.
Chairman Don Deere.
Here.
Director Desi Alvarez. Director Gloria Gray.
Here.
Director Harold Williams. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Is there any public comment?
Mr. Chairman, we have not received any request for public comment, though this meeting is being held both in person and virtually. If there's any member of the public that would like to speak, please let us know by raising your virtual hand. And Mr. Chairman, I do not see any request for public comment.
Thank you. Are there any presentations?
Staff has no presentations.
Go on to the action calendar.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This first item on the action calendar is actually an item for your consideration. It's item 5A, consider amending the administrative code related to annual ethics committee meeting. This does begin on packet page 3. As noted in the admin code, section 2-1.0 or 306 of the code of conduct, we are required to have a ethics committee annually. And I believe it is scheduled to be held on
In October.
first Monday of October. In anticipation of lacking a quorum this October, we actually took an earlier action to move it to this date for the ethics committee. In speaking with President Alvarez, he asked, why is this meeting required to be held annually? And B, the reason for that was perhaps a need for some flexibility. So what you have before you in this item is something for your consideration. If you wanted to remove the mandatory requirement that this meets annually, but legal counsel is here to discuss this. In speaking with him prior to the meeting, he suggested that it's not a bad idea to meet annually on this issue. But the question would be whether it needs to be held on that very specific first Monday of October. And so we're here to gather some feedback from the ethics committee and board. We're happy to bring this back to the full board for discussion, but that's the reason this is included in this board. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions from anyone? Go ahead.
So I have a question. Well, on the item, I see you've got some proposed language that we could use. So here's just my first thoughts is, I don't know why we have that specific date in our code. It probably doesn't really matter that much. You know, I guess I want to hear from you all. Do we need to probably at least meet once a year, or this was giving us an exception not to? So I'm open to listening to that.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. So there is some recommended language to provide some flexibility. As you know, how it's currently written, it is mandatory and the ethics committee shall meet on this very specific date. We recommended language to allow the board to make a determination of whether or not it's necessary to have that meeting. That additional language is underlined and it is in the staff report. We can also, as Director Houston alluded to, we can strike out the language requiring a meeting on a specific date. And that would be the first Monday in October. That would allow some flexibility for the ethics committee to meet annually, but perhaps not on the specific first Monday. So we're open to, your recommendations, but we do recommend in general to make it a little more flexible for the ethics committee to meet on an annual basis.
All right, well, if it's not going to be a particular date, how does it become annual? How do we know for sure it's going to be again in October, a year from now? Won't be a year, could be 11 months, could be 13, 14 months.
So the way I would view this is that it's per calendar year with the expectation within the calendar year. Similar to what we do typically or with our specific committees is work with the committee chair to find a date. Then we work with the different members of the committee and board to identify a date. We could always do that. the nice thing about that flexibility is if you did not require it to be on a very specific date, you could actually tack it on to a potential board meeting. And so it wouldn't require two specific meetings. But again, what I heard from legal counsel is that it is recommended to look at this annually. A lot of times state statutes do change, requiring some changes. So that part's not bad, but the current language doesn't provide much flexibility.
Well, does staff anticipate not having meetings on a fairly regular basis? I mean, go year after year not having a meeting?
No, I wouldn't foresee that. I would assume that over time, just due to the change in statute, that it would be required that we meet somewhat regularly.
Well, my suggestion would be to just change it to where it's a standing committee that's required to meet annually and leave it open-ended like that. That would be my suggestion. And then like General Manager said, staff once a year can work with whoever the chair is and the member to make sure that meeting happens. So we're in compliance.
Okay, so you want to make a motion to have the meeting annually?
Yeah, I guess, because here it's more of a recommendation, right? So I guess it would be, you can adjust the language to accommodate, this committee meets annually, but does not say October, the first Monday in October any further, something like that.
Yeah,
We're agreed on that, I think.
perfect. And I think that'll just be a simple change where we strike out the language on the first Monday in October. It'll simply read that the ethics committee shall meet at an annual regular meeting.
Thank you, very good. Okay.
Yeah, because,
Agree to that.
good, thank you, because I do think it's important that the committee should meet once a year at least, just to review anything. As you said, changes happen, plus we find things every once in a while that we want to tweak, so.
Gloria, is that okay with you?
Yeah, that makes good sense to me. Thank you.
Okay. That's what we're gonna do.
Well, we will, if that's okay with the committee, we will bring this back to the full board.
I don't,
So, Mr. Chair, that the next two items are on our information calendar. The first is a report from District Council on the annual review of the Code of Conduct.
what page does this start on here?
For that item, that is going to be an oral report. There is no staff report.
Okay,
for
fine.
Item 6A.
Thank you, Chair, Directors. Legal counsel did review the Code of Conduct, which is attached as the Administration Code, Section 2-1.306. We did find the section to be legally compliant, and we have no recommended changes at this time. As you know, we had a robust conversation at the last Ethics Committee meeting where we discussed both reimbursement and travel expenses. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions?
No question.
Gloria, any questions?
No question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That takes care of that matter. We'll go on to the next one. Next,
The
B.
next, yes, Mr. Chairman, the next item is 6B. It's our annual review of West Basin approved per diem meetings. As you might recall, there were some small edits made last year. We did go back and make sure that those have been included. There have not been any issues, of course, through this calendar year. But for this presentation, we do have Hazel Vasquez, our Deputy Board Secretary, and this does begin on page 36.
PJ, CJ mentioned, if I can turn your attention to page 36, it's a very brief presentation that I have, and it's more so just to go over the requirement as stated in the code, section 2-1.306, specifically subsection S1, which states that the Ethics Committee will annually review and update, if necessary, Exhibit 1, West Basin approved meetings, and bring a recommendation to the full board for their consideration if they find that that is necessary. For your review and consideration, we do have the list of approved meetings as attachment A here with this item, and that begins on packet page 37. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Yes.
No
I do have a
question.
question. I have a question because kind of forgot about it, but now I'm remembering. 'Cause General Manager and I talked about this a little bit. So this is an extremely comprehensive list. However, there are two other organizations that are not on this list that I think should be considered. One is Equality California, because they do have their what is it? Their elected and appointed officials leadership summit once a year. I think that should be added on here so that should a board member want to attend that would be covered.
What's the name of the organization?
Called Equality California. And then also there's another one. It's either Victory Institute. I think it's Victory Institute or Victory Fund, but Victory Institute, and they have events sometimes in California, but they do a conference in Washington, DC once a year for LGBTQ plus elected and appointed officials. And I think that should be added to this as well. So that should a person want to go, that would be covered by the district.
Having not heard of these organizations, I cannot support that motion at this time. I have more information, I might be able to do that.
So how would we go about considering that?
Well, if the committee wanted to move the item to the full board without a recommendation, that would allow us to provide the chairman some information. I can tell you that the Equality California does hold conferences up in Sacramento typically, but I believe that they've held them in Southern California as well. And it is a who's who of California policymakers and elected leaders from throughout the state and nationally. So we can definitely get you some information in relation to that if the committee would like to consider this at the full board.
You want to do it to the full board then?
Yeah, that's fine.
We'll do that.
So those are the only two organizations. And I can talk to you all afterward about the Victory. I think it's Victory Institute. Okay. Thank
Is
you.
that finish item 6B? Is there a closed session today?
Staff has no closed session items.
Okay, director's comments.
No comments. Thank you very much.
Lori, any comments?
No, just thanks for the report this morning. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll talk to you next time then. And if
Thank
there's
you
no other
very
business, you're welcome. If there's no other business, we are adjourned.
Thank you very much.